Hey guys, rise and shine, we grind, we are all fine, and the sun shines for yours and mine. My name is Tyrone, and welcome back to my show. Today, I would like to talk to you guys about overrated and underrated. Yes, this is one of the many topics that I have been wanting to touch up on, but I wasn't sure on how to approach this topic. You know, um, I feel that let's just jump right into it. I feel that overrated is overly noticed or having some form of mainstream attention, something that is grasping a mass population of something or a mass or surplus amount of something, I feel that when we are talking about overrated things, we could be talking about the number one basketball player that that's been player of the year for 2 3 years, you know what I mean? Or we can be talking about a special Pokemon card, or a special this or a special that. When we're talking about overrated, we can also be talking about the people out on the streets, out on out in Times Square, the people that, like the monks and the priests and the people that have the Bibles out and they're trying to speak to the people. I feel that things like that can definitely be overrated because it is trying to gain some form of mass appeal. You know, when you're trying to gain a form of a mass appeal of something, that is when you're trying to make yourself seen, or when you're doing it out in public, and it's something that should be done secret, something that should be between you and God. That is when it is being looked as something that you're using to gain some form of attention. You know, I feel that when talking about overrated, when certain people, places, or things are overrated, we tend to we tend to want to achieve we tend to want to achieve rather the success. No, we want to achieve rather being seen by millions. It's almost like the main example is music. You know what I mean? There are definitely a lot of artists that are very very good, and a lot of artists that definitely have a lot of beautiful work. But at the same time, when it comes to the persona, or when it comes to the way they think, a lot of artists would like to be seen. A lot of when you're heading into the music business, it's about exposure, but not a lot of, you'd be surprised how many people sit back and in the back, you know what I mean, but that are mainstream artists, but they still continue to humbleize themselves in that way and not make themselves so overrated, you know what I mean, wanting to be seen in the limelight of everything, you know. Excuse me for my eyebrow. When we talk about underrated, or excuse me, let me get to the examples of overrated. There are plenty more examples of overrated, but the main example is social media. Look at how many things that we deal with when it comes to social media. We deal with so many um, people who want to take photos, like, we literally live in a world. First off, we live in a world where we make it acceptable to buy followers. We make it acceptable to buy followers. That's how much we want to be seen. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. And this brings me back to a quote that I've always bumped into, and it has always resonated with me, and it's always made me feel like, nah, I don't want to do anything like that on the street. You know what I mean? It made me really think, but it's Matthew chapter 6, verse 5, and it states, and when thou prayest, thou shalt not be as the hypocrites are, for they love to pray and stand in synagogues and on the streets, that they may be seen by men. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. You know, And that has always resonated with me. And it brings us to the modern day because they still do stuff like that. Imagine, like I said, like the example in Times Square, they're literally just standing on the street corners trying to grasp people's attention just to get them to read a Bible, when people out of their own free will, out of out of the messages that they might receive from God, because we all receive messages from God, but out of their own free will to go and get up and get out and to be able to do something about the situations that arise within their life. You know, we have to stop. There are definitely leaders that we learn from, but we don't learn from grasping from a person who just wants to who wants us to buy a Bible. You know, when a Bible is free, when knowledge is free, knowledge is given from the church. You can go into a church and they say to come as you are, you know. And when it comes to when it comes to situations like that, it's a little bit difficult, and it can definitely be conflictual, you know. And when I say that, it's like you might think that the people on the streets are doing something good, and even they themselves might think they are doing something good, but Lord knows that they don't understand in that way, you know. And that's kind of like where I was coming from when it comes to overrated. But yes, like social media as well. Social media is definitely something that we want to all be seen in. Like I said, the followers, you know. Main example is the videos. Everybody with their cameras, ching ching ching, and there's nothing wrong with taking a couple of pictures and saying, "Hey, I admire myself. I love my beauty. I love everything about myself, and let me post myself." But you know, we also have those collective amounts that just want to be seen by the thousands and stuff like that, and that's okay too, because everybody has their own way that they might view life. But the most important thing for all of us, I feel, and that not I feel, excuse me, because I lean not on my own understanding, but I know that the most important thing is to not always want to be seen by the millions, because the ones who first shall be last, and the last shall be first. And we will be able to understand the deeper meaning of not always going for everything that is so overrated. Like I said, social media, technology, politics, um, clothing, it's the newest trends, the things that have a form of attention that grabs such a mass appeal that make everybody want to do that same exact thing, you know. Um, when it comes to underrated, I feel like it's more. I've always felt like underrated was more of a humble word, not much attention, overlooked, or little notice. You know, when we're underrated, it could be a good thing or a bad thing as well, just like overrated. When underrated, the good and the bad, with the good and the bad. Underrated teaches you how to humbleize yourself and to appreciate new beginnings and to appreciate the small things before the big things come. Or it just teaches you how to stay in a specific setting where you are comfortable, and that it's not overwhelming, or it doesn't ruin your authenticity about yourself. There are definitely certain things that we touch up on, like fame, fortune, certain things like that can definitely ruin a person's personality or their character. And I say that to say underrated and being in the back is a more humble thing for certain people, or to do things secretly. To do things secretly, that can be underrated as well. Most of the underrated Christians, as I would call it, or most of the underrated people that believe in God, whether you be Christian, whether you be Catholic, it would not matter. But the people that believe in God have little notice. You ever notice that? We can't notice that because most of those people that pray, they either give what they feel needs to be given to God on their own, oh, not on their own time, but in a secret and private place. Excuse me. They'll have their own place where they'll go and they'll pray. They have their own altar for the Lord. And they'll go and sit and they'll pray there. They don't, like the people out in the streets. You don't see people praying on. You don't see most of the people who don't want to be seen praying in the streets. You don't see everybody praying in the streets. No, you see them either praying in a corner, even if it's at work. I've even seen coworkers. Here's an example. One of my coworkers, my ex-coworkers, he used to pray, and especially when it was a certain when he was fasting. And when he was fasting, he would go into like a little secret area where, because I used to work for maintenance, and he used to go into that little area and he used to just pray. And I always used to ask him, "What are you doing?" He was like, "I'm just praying, bro, because I'm fasting." I was like, "Oh, okay, I understand. I understand." And see, those are the type of things that are very underrated and very humbleized, because not a lot of people will sit themselves to the back and say, "You know what? I don't need to be seen. I don't need to be seen. If I'm seen by the Lord, or if the Lord sees exactly what I'm doing, then that's all that matters. That's all that matters." When underrated people, places, or things receive less attention, it is a state of humbleization. It is a state of letting more flow to you, because you're not trying to be seen. I feel that when it comes to overrated and underrated, it's important for us to find a balance. Like I said, there's good and overrated, and then there's bad and overrated, and just like in underrated, there's good and bad. But we have to find a balance, and we have to know what our limits are when it comes to certain things of that nature. Like we know when it comes to an overrated point of view, it doesn't have to. You don't have to be seen, or you don't have to have some form of of mainstream attention in order to have million or in order to have millions looking at you, because there are definitely a lot of people that probably sit in the background. As far as I know, when it comes to musicians, there are a lot of musicians that sit in the back, even though they can be the most, even though they can be influential. They can be influential musicians, and they'll still sit within the background. I also feel that when it comes to underrated, I feel that underrated, or excuse me, scratch that whole thing. Scratch that whole thing. I wholeheartedly think that underrated would be the best choice for anybody to go after. I feel that overrated, when it came to me speaking about that, that would just kind of defeat the purpose. Not a lot of people can just say, "You know what, I don't need to sit. I don't need to sit in the and with I don't need to sit while the audience watches me do everything. I can sit by myself. I can do these things by myself." We don't need to be looked at or noticed or gaining attention or admiration because we're doing something that no, it it doesn't matter. What matters is that what is between you and God is between you and God. And to have faith within every situation, to have faith, because faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things unseen. I hope that this video could have been a blessing to you guys. I hope that I was able to give a little bit of information to you guys. If it was, please leave a thumbs up. Please comment. Please subscribe. Please click the notification links. I love you guys. I hope you all have a beautiful day, and I see you on the next one.